Hey there, it's your favorite girl, Mangie Nadia Kpaka, author of M.O.M. Welcome to Candid Talks. This is our very first 3-segment series on the Fierce Femme Energy podcast. M.O.M has been a couple of months old, and I get it. You guys have a lot of questions for me. No worries, I got y'all covered. I'm giving you all the tea on everything M.O.M. Today we're going to dive deep and unpack M.O.M with some very special guests. Let's get right to it. Last but not least, let's talk about love. Now, oftentimes when I mention M.O.M, I tell people it's this big, beautiful love letter, because essentially that's what it is, right? So today we have our my beautiful, and very close friend, Etsy Roe here, and we're going to unpack the book of love, and we're going to talk about love, So, what is love?
Oof. Love is patience. Love is understanding. Love is compromise. Love is doing things because you want to, not because you have to. Love is supportive. Love is being yourself, but also understanding how that affects the other person. That's what love is.
We have a lot of words for what love is. I actually agree with you more so on the idea of that love is some sort of compromise, right? But it's a mutual compromise where one person is giving, the other person is receiving, and then those actions of receiving and giving are reciprocated. Oftentimes we get lost in the idea of love, and we then start to follow things that are misrepresentations of that. So that would bring me actually to my next question of what isn't love? Because we have so many definitions for what love is, and I speak about that in my book, M.O.M. But oftentimes we misinterpret the things that we may place as the idea of love and misrepresent that as love. So what isn't love? If you want to tell us.
Well, I think love isn't manipulative. Love isn't controlling. Love isn't abusive. Love isn't selfish. Yeah, that's what I think love isn't.
Right. So I love that you said those two things. Love isn't manipulative and love isn't selfish. Now, when you're in a relationship, any relationship, friendship, romantic relationship, family, there's that idea of the compromise, right? Just because we're compromising doesn't mean that we're compromising at the expense of ourselves, and the other person isn't compromising at the expense of themselves. So that's where we tend to misconstrue selflessness, right? With compromise. Yeah. And compromise is not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing when both parties are having their needs met. And I speak about this in the book of love, an interlude. Let's actually switch over to that right now. Yes, so we talk about this in Interlude 13. I'd like a love based on transparency, trust, and truth. I want to be loved unconditionally in all of my flaws, yet I want to be challenged in the areas I lack. One where communication doesn't end without comprehension. I want a love that I can't live without, one that isn't dysfunctional or abusive. I want a love that is reciprocal. So back to the whole idea of compromise, selfishness versus selflessness, and how it's okay to preserve yourself if your needs are not being met, and in a relationship where that could be with family, could be with friends, it could be with your romantic partner. Specifically, in this case, I was speaking to that of a romantic partner. Because oftentimes we be like, oh, well, he does all this for me, but then he's also emotionally abusive or emotionally unavailable. And then the lines of what love isn't are kind of like blurred, because you're thinking about all the other things, the external things, and then meanwhile you're not being taken care of emotionally.
Yes.
So recently I came across an Instagram post on social media, and I don't really be paying attention too much to our love gurus on social media, because 9 out of 10 times they're made by toxic people who are just looking for an audience. But I came across this post that read from Women's Relationship Rules, and I'm just going to read verbatim what it said. I will teach my daughter how to love, but most importantly, how to stop. They never teach you how to stop.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many women struggle with this?
I think that it comes from when we're younger, right? It comes from society. It comes from our media. I feel like it's been ingrained in women to always give and take care of everyone else and put everyone else first. And, oh my God, what is he thinking? And it's like, no, girl, like, what are you thinking? Like, are you okay? So I think that it's getting a little bit more mainstream, but not really. It's still a kind of like a radical idea for a woman to say, no, I don't really fuck with him like that. Can we curse?
Yeah. That's the Fierce Femininity podcast.
But to be like, nah, I don't really fuck with him like that. And it can be small things too. I feel like that's where a lot of women, they think that it has to be something big to set a boundary. It can be small. I recommend it. I say whenever you meet someone new, whether it be a friend or someone who is a romantic partner, I say set a small boundary. It could be, I prefer you to call me by this, or no, I'll rather be in by this time, and see how they react. If they can't even follow that, then girl.
Right. I absolutely concur with the idea of boundaries, small boundaries, right? Oftentimes we get caught up in the idea of being in this relationship, the idea of, oh my God, I love him, oh my God, I love her. And we just start like forgetting ourselves and, what we're comfortable with. And also sometimes they also forget what they're comfortable with. And when those boundaries are not, communicated and comprehended, right? Because there's one thing, you can talk to somebody and it go through right the other ear, but if they're not actually applying what you communicated and trying to meet you halfway, then you have to, understand that your boundaries are your boundaries. And I speak about this mainly also in Letter to Love from H.M. Drive. I believe that's the last, what I would call, love letter in this book. And essentially, for me, it was hard for me letting that person go. Understanding that that person is not my possession. And now the hard part, right? The hard part, as it's been, nearly a year now, almost a year. December would make it a year since I wrote that. Understanding that I have to set that boundary, that that person is not allowed into my space because my boundary was violated. Oftentimes we as women, we forget that our power is actually in walking away. Not sticking around for the third or fourth time or even the second time, because sometimes people need to understand that you're not meant to be mishandled. I'm all for forgiveness. Forgiveness is not so much for the other person, it's for yourself. So you forgive that person, I forgave that person, and then forgive myself for blaming myself, right? And also just learning and trying to stick to to that boundary of, well, this person violated my boundary of as far as communication and trust, and I'm not gonna let this person back. That's a healthy boundary. We don't always have to take people back after they've mishandled us.
Yes.
To mask that as forgiveness, that is a detriment. That could potentially be a detriment. Yeah, sure, for some people it works, and not in all cases where you break up with somebody or you guys end on horrible terms, and then you guys are able to come back and build and start fresh. But even when you're building and starting fresh, you are then establishing those boundaries and establishing that respect. And I think over time we're seeing it slowly, but both men and women mainly because we're women, right? Because the context here was teaching our daughters when to stop. We need to get to a point where it's not until the person starts to be emotionally abusive or physically abusive. It's when our boundaries that we are not comfortable with being broken are mishandled and disregarded. That's when we need to walk away, to say we're better than that. And that's where our power is. Your power is in walking away. I remember a guy friend of mine said one time, he's like, women don't understand this concept, but the minute you walk away, he may not realize it at that moment, but the fact that you walked away, it not only makes him want you more, but it also makes him respect and understand what it is that he's losing out on. So in this book, right, this love letter, I mentioned many different types of love. So we mentioned the love of God, platonic love, romantic love, friendships. Which of the three do you really feel is the most important?
I think all three are important, but if I had to rank, I would say the love of God, then right under platonic, then a few notches relationships. Yeah, that's how I would rank them. Because think about it, right? Like, let's think about, like, how long you've known your longest friend, right? And compare that to how long you've had your longest relationship. Almost everybody has a close friend that they have had longer than the relationship.
True.
And God, or whatever spiritual being you believe in, has been there since the beginning. So that's first and foremost. And yeah.
I agree with you. Keeping God first. For me, I had a lot of moments while writing this book where I had to take a moment away and I had to talk to God, because it was either that it was too hard to relive some of the traumas that I speak about in the Book of Queens, or the Book of Liberation and the Book of Humanity. So there were times where I had to step away and just like, God, please. Please, you handle this. I'm gonna talk to you right now. And then there were some times too, where I stepped away and I didn't talk to God. And those moments were probably more like it was easy at some point, but then it was also really hard. Because then I'm like, God, like, oh my God, maybe this is why things aren't moving the way they should be moving, because I stopped talking to you maybe like, a few months ago, and I got comfortable. And that's what happens, with human nature. We get comfortable, things are going great, and all of a sudden we no longer praying to God, oh God, please grant me this new job, God, please, help me to finish this book, or please, God, please give me Sierra's prayer. So God, yeah, the love of God is really important for me. And I also put platonic over romantic relationships, contrary to belief, y'all. But yes, love from family and friends, was the first love that I knew before getting into romantic, and not really having so much experience in the romantic arena. Going in, I found myself in situations that I thought was love, and it wasn't really. Some of these love letters, right? I actually wrote when I was like in high school, in junior high school, and like the boy didn't even know my name. So, or he knew my face, but he didn't even know that I was checking for him like that. So it's really just me going through the motions and trying to figure out what that is. What does that look like? What does it touch? What does it feel? What does it taste like? And you know, but definitely, if I was to choose any right now, I would have to say the love of God still comes first, before any of the three, because that's where we're taught to love. I don't know if anyone listening is spiritual, religious, what have you, but that's how I was taught to love, and I'm still learning how to love through that practice. But if you guys are interested in all of the juicy stuff that I talk about in the book of love, you just got to go ahead and grab yourself a copy of M.O.M, Memoirs of Mangie. Get in on the conversation, and let's talk about love. I think we'll probably have a second segment, because I feel like we didn't really go too deep into this conversation. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to our very last segment on the Fierce Femme Energy podcast, on Candid Talks, here with your one and only Mangie, Nadia, Kpaka. Follow your girl on Instagram, Salone_Queen95. Subscribe to that YouTube channel, all right? 100 Degrees of MNK. And if you haven't already, click in your browser, 100degreesofmnk.com/mom. Thank you all again. Thank you, my good friend Etsy. And see you next time on Fierce Femme Energy podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on the Fierce Femme Energy podcast. I'm looking forward to having more guests. If you know any fierce, feminine women who are doing the damn thing, if you're an engineer, fashion designer, whatever you do, go ahead and hit me up at bookings.mnk@gmail.com, or you can DM me directly on Instagram at Salone_Queen95. Again, that's Salone_Queen95. So we can get you on here, so we can, tell everybody how fierce, feminine, and boss like you are. Again, thank you so much. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I know y'all have been getting unsubscribed. Don't worry. Just subscribe back to my channel, 100 Degrees of MNK. Thank you. See you guys later. Bye.